He just wanted to swim. But in less than 60 seconds, a teenage boy would be humiliated in front of an entire pool, shoved aside, not for breaking the rules, but for the color of his skin. Parents looked away. Lifeguards froze. And the woman yelling? She didn't realize who he had just texted. She thought she was in control. But someone was already on the way. And when he arrived, this entire neighborhood would feel the ripple. Drop your city or country in the comments. Where are you watching from? And stay close. This story's just getting started. On a bright, sun-drenched afternoon, the neighborhood pool was alive with the sounds of summer, the cheerful laughter of children splashing in the shallow end, the occasional whistle of the lifeguard, and the hum of casual conversations among parents lounging poolside. Families and teenagers alike had come to escape the heat, eager to enjoy a few hours of relaxation beneath the clear blue sky. Among the crowd was James Lewis, a 16-year-old with an easy smile and a quiet confidence. He had grown up in this community, his presence around the pool as familiar as the warm sun overhead. James wore his swim shorts and a simple t-shirt, his towel draped casually over one shoulder as he made his way toward the pool's entrance. The scent of chlorine mingled with the faint aroma of sunscreen, a comforting reminder of countless summers spent here. As James approached the gate, his footsteps were light, but his heart carried the steady beat of someone who belonged. That sense of belonging, however, was about to be challenged. Standing near the entrance was Allison Mitchell, a woman in her early 50s, her sharp eyes narrowed as she scanned the crowd. Known among neighbors for her outspoken nature and rigid views about order in the community, Allison had taken a particular interest in who frequented the pool that day. Her gaze fixed on James as he reached the gate, and without hesitation she stepped forward, her voice cutting through the ambient sounds like a sudden gust of wind. "Hey you," Allison called out, her tone sharp and unyielding. James paused, looking up with a measured curiosity. "Do you even live around here? This is a private pool for residents only. You need to leave." The words hung in the air, heavy with accusation. James blinked, momentarily taken aback by the unexpected confrontation. He opened his mouth to respond, but Allison pressed on, her voice rising just enough to draw the attention of those nearby. "I said, get out. I don't know who you think you are, but we don't want people like you hanging around here." The phrase "people like you" echoed like a slap, charged with a meaning that sent a ripple through the onlookers. A few heads turned, curiosity mixing with unease as parents and teens glanced from James to Allison, sensing the building tension. The pool's joyful atmosphere shifted subtly, as if the warm sunlight had dimmed under a cloud. James's expression remained calm, though inside he felt the familiar sting of being singled out. He took a steadying breath and met Allison's gaze evenly. "I'm a member here," he said quietly, but firmly. "I live just 2 blocks away. I have every right to be here." Allison's lips tightened into a thin line. "I don't care where you live. You don't belong here. This pool is for paying residents. You're not welcome." Around them, the murmur of conversations faltered. A few swimmers paused mid-stroke, and parents turned toward the exchange, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent. The lifeguard, perched high in his chair, shifted uncomfortably, but remained still, eyes flicking between James and Allison. James felt the weight of their silence, but refused to let it shake him. He squared his shoulders and replied, "I'm not leaving. This is my community, too." Allison's face flushed with frustration, her voice rising an octave. You're going to cause trouble, I can tell. I'm going to call security if you don't leave right now." Her threat sent a ripple through the crowd, the tension thickening like steam rising from the hot pavement. James's fingers tightened around the strap of his towel, but his voice stayed steady. "I haven't caused any trouble. Please don't do that." The first few whispers began among the spectators, some questioning Allison's harshness, others unsure how to react. No one moved toward James to offer support, nor did anyone step in to back Allison. The silence felt heavy. A collective breath held, waiting to see what would come next. Allison, determined to assert her authority, pulled out her phone, her hands shaking slightly. "I'm calling security. This isn't over." James's eyes flicked toward the lifeguard again, who now stood, his expression conflicted but non-committal. The pool, once a place of carefree fun, had become a stage for confrontation. Despite the hostility, James maintained his composure. His voice was calm but resolute as he addressed the growing crowd. "I'm just here to swim. I don't want any trouble. I'm part of this community." Nearby, a young mother pulled her child closer, her eyes darting nervously between the two adults. A cluster of teenagers whispered among themselves, some exchanging glances of discomfort, others looking away to avoid involvement. The lifeguard cleared his throat but said nothing. Allison's gaze remained fixed on James, her jaw clenched. "You don't belong here. You're making everyone uncomfortable." James shook his head slowly. "No one should feel uncomfortable because of who I am. I'm here like anyone else." The moment stretched taut, the invisible thread of tension pulling tighter between them. Around the pool, the usual sounds of splashing and laughter had all but faded, replaced by a heavy quiet. The crowd watched, caught between curiosity and unease, as the confrontation held the space captive. James's mind raced through the lessons he'd learned growing up to stand tall, to respond with dignity, even when faced with unfairness. He knew this wasn't just about a pool. It was about respect, acceptance, and the right to belong without question. Before the situation could escalate further, several poolgoers shifted uncomfortably, their eyes flickering toward their phones or turning away, unwilling to step into the fray. The lifeguard finally spoke, his voice low but firm. "Security's on their way." James nodded slowly, bracing himself for what was to come. He glanced once more at the crowd, searching for a flicker of support but finding only hesitation. Still, he remained composed, ready to face whatever unfolded next with quiet strength. As Allison's phone remained pressed to her ear, the poolside atmosphere hung suspended. The afternoon sun now casting long shadows over a scene that had transformed from a simple day of swimming into a moment charged with the weight of judgment and resilience. The afternoon sun continued to blaze, but the warmth seemed to wane beneath the thickening tension at the neighborhood pool. James stood near the entrance, his posture steady, yet his mind alert to every movement and whispered word around him. Allison Mitchell's voice still echoed faintly as she spoke into her phone, calling for security, her tone sharp and insistent. The usual summer chatter had all but vanished, replaced by a heavy silence punctuated only by the occasional shuffle of feet or the distant bark of a dog. James's eyes scanned the crowd, noting the expressions of those gathered. Some faces bore confusion, others discomfort, and a few carried silent judgment. The lifeguard remained perched high above, his gaze flickering nervously between the unfolding scene and the pool below. Despite the swirling unease, no one stepped forward to support James or challenge Allison's accusations. It was as if an invisible wall had risen between the bystanders and the confrontation, leaving James isolated in the spotlight. Taking a slow breath, James met Allison's gaze once more. "I'm a member of this community," he said quietly but firmly, "and I have every right to be here. I've paid the membership fees, just like everyone else." Allison's eyes narrowed, her lips pressed into a hard line. "I don't want to hear it. You don't belong here. You're making people uncomfortable." James shook his head, his voice calm but resolute. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm just here to swim." The crowd shifted uneasily, some glancing at one another, unsure how to respond. The lifeguard cleared his throat, his voice hesitant. "Sir, please, stay calm. Security is on the way." James nodded, keeping his composure. "Thank you. I'm just asking to be treated fairly." Allison scoffed, crossing her arms over her chest. "Fairly? Those aren't my rules. This is private property, and I'm just making sure those rules are followed." The tension thickened, an invisible charge vibrating through the air. The swimmers in the pool glanced toward the scene, their strokes slowing or stopping altogether. Parents pulled their children a little closer, their eyes darting between Allison, James, and the lifeguard. The atmosphere, once light and carefree, had become heavy with judgment and unspoken accusations. As Allison resumed her phone call, James discreetly pulled out his own phone, fingers trembling slightly as he typed a quick message to his father. He didn't want to escalate the situation, but he needed support, someone who could help navigate the storm brewing around him. Nearby, a group of teenagers whispered among themselves, their voices low and uncertain. One of them, a girl around James's age, glanced over at him with a flicker of sympathy, but said nothing. The silence from the crowd was deafening, a stark reminder that standing alone was often the only choice in moments like these. Minutes stretched on, each one heavier than the last. Allison paced slightly, her phone pressed tightly to her ear as she continued to demand assistance. James remained still, his breathing measured, eyes steady, despite the rising pressure. Finally, the unmistakable sound of footsteps and voices approached from the parking lot. 2 security guards arrived, their uniforms crisp and expressions unreadable. They exchanged a quick glance before focusing on the scene before them. One of the guards, a tall man with a stern demeanor, stepped forward. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked, voice authoritative but neutral. Allison pointed toward James, her tone accusatory. "This young man is trespassing. He's not a resident and has no right to be here." James straightened, meeting the guard's eyes. "I'm a member. I live in the neighborhood, and I pay the fees just like everyone else." The guard's gaze flicked to James's membership card, which James produced calmly from his wallet. He handed it over without hesitation. The second guard took the card, scrutinizing it carefully. After a moment, he looked up, expression unchanged. "We need to verify this with management. Until then, you need to remain here." James nodded, complying, but feeling the weight of suspicion hanging over him like a shroud. Allison's lips curled into a slight smirk, as though victory was within reach. The crowd remained silent, the earlier whispers now replaced by a heavy stillness. The lifeguard watched from his high perch, eyes flicking anxiously between the guards and James. The tension was palpable, a simmering mix of discomfort, judgment, and unspoken questions. James's phone buzzed softly in his pocket. He glanced at it briefly, a message from his father asking if he was okay. He typed back a quick reply, assuring him he was fine but needed help. As the security guards continued their inspection, James's thoughts drifted to the countless times he had been judged before, the moments when his presence alone seemed to invite suspicion. Yet today, in this place he considered home, the sting felt sharper, a reminder that acceptance was still a battle. Allison took a step closer, her voice low but venomous. "See? Even they're questioning you." James met her gaze, unwavering. "I'm not asking for anyone's permission. I'm just asking for respect." The guards finished their check and handed the membership card back to James. "You're clear," the taller guard said, his tone neutral, but with a faint edge of caution. "But we're going to keep an eye on things." Relief washed over James, but it was tempered by the knowledge that the ordeal was far from over. Allison's eyes narrowed, her posture stiffening, as if preparing for the next move. The lifeguard finally spoke, stepping down from his chair. "Let's keep the peace, everyone. This is a place for community, not conflict." The crowd exhaled collectively, the tension easing just enough to allow normal sounds to creep back in the splash of water, the distant chatter, the hum of summer life. Still, the silence from the bystanders lingered, a quiet testament to the discomfort that had settled among them. No words of support reached James. No hands reached out in solidarity. Instead, he stood alone, a quiet figure amid the shifting currents of scrutiny and suspicion. As James folded his towel and prepared to move toward the pool, Allison's gaze locked on him one final time. "I'll be watching," she said coldly. James met her stare with calm resolve. "And I'll be here." The afternoon sun continued its descent, casting long shadows over a scene that had transformed from a simple day of swimming into a moment charged with the complexities of identity, belonging, and the quiet strength required to stand firm in the face of adversity. The atmosphere at the pool remained charged, the summer afternoon now heavy with anticipation as the security guards stood near James, their expressions guarded but watchful. The murmurs among the crowd had quieted, replaced by a tense stillness that hung over the poolside like a gathering storm. James's eyes flicked toward the parking lot, where a sleek black SUV was pulling into view, its polished surface catching the sunlight and reflecting the scene unfolding around it. The vehicle came to a smooth stop, and moments later, a tall, imposing man emerged. His presence was commanding broad, shouldered, and purposeful. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to authority and respect. His crisp Navy uniform marked him as a Navy SEAL, and the subtle insignia on his chest spoke volumes about his discipline and dedication. This was James's father, Elijah Lewis, a man known in the community not only for his service, but for his unwavering commitment to fairness and justice. As Elijah approached, the crowd instinctively parted, their whispers growing louder with a mixture of curiosity and relief. The lifeguard straightened, and even Allison Mitchell's posture shifted slightly, her composure faltering under the weight of Elijah's steady gaze. Elijah stopped just short of the group, his eyes locking onto Allison. His voice was calm but firm, carrying the unmistakable tone of authority. "What's going on here?" Allison shifted uneasily, her previous confidence wavering. "This young man you're Sony's trespassing. He doesn't belong here." Elijah's gaze hardened, his jaw tightening. "He's a member of this community, and he has every right to be here. I've seen nothing but respect and patience from him. What's the real issue?" The security guards exchanged glances, their earlier sternness softening in the presence of Elijah's commanding presence. One of them stepped forward, cautiously. "There was some confusion about his membership, sir. We were verifying his credentials." Elijah nodded slowly, but without apology. And was that verification handled respectfully, or was it an excuse to single him out? Allison's face flushed, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on her. She struggled to find words, but none came. The crowd around them started to murmur, voices rising in quiet disapproval. A woman nearby shook her head, whispering to a friend, "That wasn't right." Another man folded his arms, eyes fixed on Allison with a mixture of disappointment and regret. Elijah turned his attention back to Allison and the guards. "This isn't just about membership cards. It's about respect and fairness. Profiling someone based on assumptions is unacceptable." Allison swallowed hard, her earlier bravado replaced by discomfort. I was just trying to protect the community." "By what means?" Elijah asked, voice steady but edged with challenge. "By creating division and suspicion? By making a young man feel unwelcome in his own neighborhood?" The crowd's mood shifted palpably. More people began to voice their disagreement with Allison's actions, their earlier silence breaking into murmurs of support for James. A father near the pool called out, "We're all neighbors here. We should look out for each other, not tear each other down." Elijah glanced at James, who stood tall despite the ordeal, his calm demeanor a testament to his strength. "James, I'm proud of how you handled this. No one should be made to feel like an outsider in their own community." Allison's eyes darted around, sensing the tide turning against her. The security guards, now clearly uncomfortable, began to back away slightly, their stance less confrontational. Elijah addressed them firmly. "I expect you to treat everyone here with dignity and fairness. This community thrives when we stand united, not divided." Allison's lips pressed into a thin line, her shoulders slumping as the reality of the situation settled in. The people around the pool, once silent observers, now voiced their disapproval openly. Some apologized quietly to James, offering nods of solidarity and support. As the tension eased, Elijah's presence seemed to restore a sense of balance to the afternoon. The lifeguard resumed his post, now more vigilant to ensure such incidents did not recur. The pool's usual sounds, the splashing water, the laughter, the chatter, began to fill the air once more, slowly pushing back the heavy silence that had settled. James exchanged a grateful glance with his father, the unspoken bond between them stronger than ever. Elijah's arrival had transformed the confrontation into a moment of accountability and reflection, reminding everyone present of the importance of standing up against injustice. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the pool deck as the crowd gradually dispersed, conversations turning toward unity and understanding. The incident, once a source of discomfort, became a catalyst for change, a collective awakening within the community to the need for vigilance, respect, and inclusivity. As Elijah and James prepared to leave, their steps were steady and purposeful, a symbol of strength and resilience in the face of adversity. The black SUV's door closed behind them with a quiet finality, leaving behind a pool transformed not just by the water it held, but by the courage and conviction of those who refused to accept discrimination. The community, now stirred from its earlier passivity, faced a choice to learn, grow, and stand together against prejudice, or to allow old biases to linger in the shadows. In that moment, the path forward seemed clear, illuminated by the promise of justice and the power of unity. The sun dipped lower in the late afternoon sky, casting a warm golden hue over the neighborhood pool as the crowd began to disperse. The earlier tension had softened into a quiet hum of conversation, a collective reckoning unfolding among those who had witnessed the confrontation. James and his father, Elijah, stood near the exit, their presence a steady anchor amid the shifting waves of reflection and apology. Elijah looked around at the faces some still marked by discomfort, others by genuine regret. Stepping forward, he raised his voice, just enough to carry over the murmurs, his tone calm but resolute. What happened here today wasn't just about one person or one incident. It's about how we treat each other as a community. Racism, bias, and discrimination don't just hurt individuals, they harm us all. His words hung in the air, inviting the crowd to consider the deeper implications of what had unfolded. A few heads nodded, and a woman near the poolside wiped her eyes, overcome by the weight of recognition. Elijah continued, his voice steady. We all have a responsibility to stand up when we see injustice, to support each other, and to build a community where everyone feels safe and valued. He glanced at James, whose calm demeanor belied the emotional toll of the afternoon. James handled himself with grace and courage today, Elijah said, pride evident in his voice. That strength comes from knowing who you are and standing firm in the face of adversity. A man in the crowd, a long-time resident, stepped forward hesitantly. I'm sorry, James, he said quietly. I didn't say anything when I should have. I'll do better. Others echoed similar sentiment-soft apologies, acknowledgments of past silence, and promises to be more vigilant. The atmosphere shifted, the earlier silence replaced by a growing sense of unity and commitment. James met each apology with a nod, his eyes reflecting a mixture of relief and hope. Thank you, he said simply. It means a lot to know we're not alone. Elijah addressed the gathering once more, urging action beyond words. Let's not let today be just a moment. Let it be the start of change. Speak up when you see discrimination. Support your neighbors. Together, we can create a place where everyone belongs. As the crowd began to thin, a few people approached James and Elijah, offering handshakes and words of encouragement. The lifeguard, now more relaxed, gave a small thumbs up from his chair. The pool, which had been the backdrop for confrontation, was slowly returning to its role as a place of community and enjoyment. James and his father walked toward their car, the weight of the afternoon lifting with each step. You did great today, Elijah said, placing a firm hand on James' shoulder. This is just the beginning. James smiled, a quiet strength radiating from within. I'm ready. Their departure left behind a transformed Sinia community, awakened, conversations sparked, and a collective promise to stand against injustice. The poolside, once tense and divided, now echoed with the potential for understanding and change. As they drove away, the sun setting behind them, the message was clear. Progress begins when people choose to confront their biases, to support one another, and to fight together for equality. In that commitment lay the hope for a future where everyone could truly belong. Thanks for watching. Please like the video and subscribe. If this story stirred something in you, don't let it stop here. Like the video to support voices that need to be heard. Share it with someone who still believes respect is earned, not assigned. And if you believe in standing up even when it's uncomfortable, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started.